Welcome to Financial Freedom with the Flipping Flanagans, where we help real estate agents and already successful business professionals create legacy wealth through real estate. We go by the Flipping Flanagans, and we don't actually flip houses very often. When you drop the F-bomb a little too often, add that to a real estate background, you get the Flipping Flanagans. We actually buy property to hold and see long-term gains protected from inflation while seeing amazing benefits from appreciation and depreciation. See you on the other side. All right, welcome back, everybody. So today we are super lucky. We have a guest speaker on. So this is Maraya Brown. She's actually a Yale and functional medicine trained CNM and MSN. She helps ambitious women feel turned on by their life, their lover, and themselves. She's a mom, wife, and CEO who left her Fortune 50 company corporate career to serve women in her own company. So Maraya, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And some back history is we actually were at an event together and I heard her talking on the stage and they were talking about her ideal client. And my husband and I were both in the session and it was really interesting because as she was navigating her ideal client, we were like, hey, here I am, right? And I am surrounded by lots and lots of couples who ask us for advice. And so her and I just kind of started talking on a personal business level. And we thought it'd be awesome to interview each other. So welcome, Maraya.
Thanks. Yeah, it's true. We're going to do a podcast swap.
Yes.
I think that we have value that we can add to each other's audiences.
Yes, absolutely. So Maraya, we were talking about she's in Puerto Rico right now too, by the way, you guys. I'm in windy Nebraska. And every time we record a podcast, we're in a different state. So I am in Nebraska this time around and she's in Puerto Rico and I'm a little jealous because you guys all know I love to travel. So anyways, getting back to the topic, Maraya, I'd love to just give me some additional insight you'd like the listeners to know about you, and let's start the conversation.
Sure. And yes, I am in Puerto Rico right now. I'm in my hotel room and I'm looking out the window at a spectacular panoramic view of the ocean. So I'm feeling very inspired, sun-kissed, but home for me is Oregon. So like you said, I am a Yale and functional medicine trained certified nurse midwife and nurse practitioner. And so I mainly work with women. Actually, I really only work with women, but many husbands send their women my way. And it's particularly ambitious women who really want to feel vibrant. They really want to feel zest-filled. And right now they're so ambitious that they're burning the candle at both ends. They're doing a great job at building a business, but they're finding themselves feeling tired, not sleeping sometimes. Maybe there's more pronounced irritability. They're finding like I often hear, I feel like something's going on with my hormones, but I've gone into my provider, they've ordered some tests and have told everything's normal, or I've just been given a prescription and they're saying, but I really feel like something else is going on. And then what I also hear is women that are so driven, they're great at working, but they're having a hard time prioritizing themselves. And that's showing up in sometimes some extra weight, but also a decrease in passion and or libido. And all of a sudden it's affecting their marriage. It's affecting their excitement and passion for the work that they're doing. And so my work is all online. I bring them into my infrastructure and we get to really look underneath the hood and get to the real bottom of, what's going on with your hormones? Why are you feeling so exhausted? Why are you having the symptoms that you're having? But also, how do we turn on your confidence? How do we turn your passion and your libido back on so that you can feel turned on by your life, your lover, and yourself? And it's done with a multidisciplinary team. So it's me as well as a team of master coaches. So a woman's able to come into the infrastructure and really be held in all areas of her mindset, as well as her health and her hormones and her libido. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay. So we're all adults here, right? And Brad and I's podcast is all talking about how to create an amazing life and marriage and family life. So this I feel like is really good timing because I do get questions around this a lot. And usually what happens is when I'm coaching high level women in real estate and their family work, marriage life starts to suffer. It's just the way it is. We are running around on the weekends. We are
And we like find passion projects. So I feel like, you know, when we talk about like flip houses and a rental, it's like this new level of excitement every time you find a new home that you like pour into, like you're doing a flip together. And I can see like even like couples who do flips, everyone's like, oh, Brad must do the contracting work and you must, you know, do all the interior design. And it's actually not. I have a full-time, I have somebody who actually stages the houses, and Brad actually finds the money. He has nothing to do with, you know, hammering a nail ever. But there are, when you have a passion project, one of you is always going to be more passionate, right? So sometimes if he finds the project, that's him. And sometimes it's me. And I think what in general, and this is like talking, I mean, we surround ourselves by people in real estate. And this is a constant conversation of like, well, all of a sudden all your time is sucked into this project. And then you're in the kids, and then you're trying to like, we travel a ton, but then we find ourselves working when we travel. And we've also trained ourselves that that's okay, because we'd rather be working from a beautiful scenery, like we're still working. But now it's like, how do we work it all together where we bring it back to the reason that we started? And like you said, burning the candle at both ends, that really spoke to me, because that's really what happens. And so, yes, like, what would your advice be for an ambitious couple who like, you find passion in things, like it's almost, does that make sense? Like,
yeah, absolutely. The passion project becomes external, and sometimes what happens is we forget to make our relationship and our marriage the passion project. Or if you're single, you forget to make your own well-being and your body your passion project. And so what I say is we have to come back to prioritizing ourselves and filling up our own cup. And it's a non-negotiable, and we don't need permission. As women, we are constantly serving. We're constantly caring for our husbands and our children and our family members and our neighbors and our businesses. And there's always someone for us to take care of. And often we save the table scraps for ourselves. And in this scenario, maybe women in your space invest heavily in their business coaching, and they don't save table scraps for themselves in regard to diversifying their portfolio and hiring a good stager and bringing in interior design, whatever it may be, but they perpetually forget to eat and drink and get proper sleep and actually address our foundational needs. And so what happens for me is, what I see is these women end up coming to me and they're a wreck. All of a sudden, they're exhausted. They have anxiety. They've put on extra weight. Their thyroid has crashed and they've been put on thyroid medications. Many of them have been put on anti-anxiety meds or antidepressants. And what I can say is, maybe you're happy right now taking your prescriptions and continuing your sprint. I'm not necessarily your place. I'm looking for women who are ready to say, I'm tired of just putting another Band-Aid on this festering wound. The festering wound being your foundational well-being, your health, your hormones, your thyroid, your libido, but instead to say, okay, wait a minute, I'm either going to pay now or I'm going to pay significantly later. And so the challenge is, when the women come to me way down the road, now their adrenals have crashed and there is no them left over to pour into this work that they're doing. And then the other piece I want to say is, from the relationship piece, we have to continue to nurture our relationship and our marriage. So most of the women that come into my space are heterosexual. So I'm just going to speak in those terms. Hopefully that's okay. If you're not heterosexual and you're listening, you're still welcome to reach out to me. But hopefully it's okay if I just kind of use the male-female terminology. Especially if we're working in our marriage, we have to remember that we're very different beings. Okay, I'm talking about libido now. Okay, so if there's any little kids listening, put on some earbuds, push pause. Okay, so a man's arousal system is spontaneous. There's a reason why Viagra works for men. You bring blood flow to that area. There's a nuclear bomb going, a naked woman walks in front, he's erect, ready to go. Okay, that's a male's arousal system. For women, that's not how we work. It's not how we're wired. It's one of the reasons why we haven't found a Viagra for women. Our arousal system is responsive, meaning it has to do with our entire day. Okay. Do we feel heard? Do we feel seen? Do we feel nurtured? Do you know what your love language is? For me, my love language is quality time. So if my husband sends me flowers, that's really sweet, but I'm not necessarily hearing I love you. Where I'm going to feel my turn on is if we have those little moments where I really feel like we've connected. And then later on that day, if there's a moment where we can make love, I'm going to be responsive to whatever that looks like. Okay. And so for women, they're burnt out. Their adrenals are crashing. Their thyroid is crashing. They're putting on extra weight. Now they're tired. You can see the bags under their eyes. They're having to go get extra Botox because they're foundationally not taking care of themselves. And now the candle's burned at both ends. And then at home in their relationship, it's feeling dead because maybe the passion is still alive for the career, but they've forgotten to keep the passion alive in their body, their well-being, and their sexual dynamic in their relationship. And the last thing I'll add is I always say we have to feel turned on by our life, our lover, and ourselves, the self piece, to help women start shifting how we care for ourselves, how we prioritize ourselves. That's not like,
you hear that, guys? Yeah. If she's getting her spa treatments and her hair did.
Yes.
She's feel taken care of.
Yes, but it's not just, I'm going to go take a bath.
Right.
Okay. Yes, that's a start, but it's like really allowing ourselves to prioritize ourselves. Right now, I'm here solo. Dad's home with 3 kids. And mom's doing mom. And I'm filling up my own cup. Yes, I'm here for work, surrounding myself with other powerhouse entrepreneurs. And we were just together in Florida last week. But it's about how I look in the mirror and how I speak to myself. Like self-care is also the shift in, can I receive a compliment and just simply say thank you without an excuse? Can I feel proud of the accomplishments that I've made? And yes, we as ambitious women are going to perpetually move the goalpost. But can we also take a pause and really soak in gratitude and acknowledge the accomplishments that we've already had and celebrate that ideally within the partnership, because that celebration is going to foster passion, in my opinion.
You totally just hit like the nail on the head too, as far as like, gosh, now I got to think of how you just worded it. She speaks so like, well, like she's all natural and it's awesome. And I love love listening to you. But like the confidence and how you said you'll always get to the next goal, but like literally sitting and realizing how far you've come. Yeah. And I think that's and this goes back to like, as a whole, as you know, the roles in the home have even changed. And when women used to stay home and the men would go to work, and I feel like we hold ourselves to different standards without realizing we hold ourselves to different standards. And like we would never expect somebody else to do some of the things that we hold ourselves accountable to. And so if you ever actually wrote down everything that you tell yourself that you have to do in a day or a week or a month, and you actually thought through it, like think of how far you've come with your kids and like where they're at, and your, marriage, that in itself, many like our listeners and know me and Brad have been married, divorced, and we got remarried. And yeah, so now, and we like rushed into it, but now like that is something that Brad and I constantly come back to, is like how far and how close we've come, and the hard conversations that we can have now that we couldn't have before. Yeah. And just that we weren't comfortable. And I recently posted a thing on Facebook about confidence, and it's like confidence not to be like, confidence doesn't mean like one up, like feel better. It's like you're awesome and I'm awesome. We're both awesome and we're both really good at different things, and we should be building each other up. And I think that's something that's so amazing about like even having a conversation with you, Maraya, is like, that like that level of confidence, and how do we create confidence within the marriage and within our passion and our life. Yep. That I don't, if that like makes sense, but basically like like, what is that next building block? What is the next goalpost in creating that for women who are, super ambitious? Like there is like this level of like, when I just sit, all of a sudden my brain goes crazy. And then I'm looking for something to do or another accomplishment to make versus just being in the moment.
Well, you have to remember I'm a midwife. So if you were to come work with me, I would help you learn to be still and be in the moment. And I think that that's a really valuable thing for us to do, particularly, and you and I had this conversation based on where we are in our 28-day cycle. So I want to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah.
And just to highlight exactly what we're doing right here, we're doing a podcast swap. You're going to interview me. I'm going to interview you. I believe that a rising tide lifts all boats. And that's fact.
Right.
But what I believe is that we as women really, there's room for us to support one another and stop the cattiness and the competitiveness. And so as ambitious women, and the women that I work with, there's many of them that are stay-at-home moms, but they're still ambitious. They're ambitious because they want to support their household in a more profound way. They're ambitious based on the legacy that they want to live and how they want to show up for their children, so that the children look at them and go, yeah, I want to be like my mom, right? So, but specifically to speak to the 28-day cycle, rest is not earned, it's required. Let me say that again. Rest is not earned, it is required. Okay. And for us as women, especially those of us that are out there getting the dang thing done, we're showing up in our masculine for sure. Like, you betcha bottom dollar, I can be the banks to the river and I'm building a solid, successful business. And I'm able to take pause and be in my feminine. And so the feminine is that receiving space. The feminine is the pause. The feminine is the flow. The banks keep the water flowing the direction it needs to. So ultimately it makes it to the ocean, right? Without the banks, you're going to have a flood and that water never makes it. So we have to have both. But what I mentioned is our 28-day cycle. This is whether or not you're having a menstrual cycle or not. So if you're bleeding on a monthly basis, it makes it a lot easier to track. But if you're beyond menopause or you're in perimenopause and having irregular cycles, or you have PCOS or you're on contraception, you can still track this. And what I recommend is that you track it based on the moon. Okay. The moon pulls tides, my friend. I think it's ignorant of us to think that it's not having effect on our body. And so if you say that day 1 is the first day of your bleed, okay, that's day 1 of your menstrual cycle. And I break it up into 4 seasons. So if there's 4 weeks in a month, week 1 is winter. Winter is the time that we really do need to rest. We need to get quiet. That's not the time to go do your big weightlifting. It's not the time to grin and bear it, put an extra pad, take an extra ibuprofen and go for a run. Go ahead.
So say this again. So this is basically when you're looking at your cycle.
Yeah.
You're looking at week 1 as your start of your period.
Correct. The first day that you bleed is day 1. So that's week 1, and that's your winter time. So you think of winter, we want to put on some extra layers. We get a little bit quiet. We sit by the fireplace with a good book, right? So that's the time that rest becomes really a non-negotiable. And what happens for women that don't listen in, and they keep doing the bodybuilding, they keep working the long hours, they show up on the calls, they overbook themselves, they plan the party, and even though they're cramping and exhausted, they have the party anyway. We're putting our adrenals into fight, flight, or freeze, and literally our body thinks it's being chased by a lion. So it's either going to be eaten or it's going to survive. And in that context, your digestion shuts off, your hormone production shuts off, your immune system shuts off, and your clarity of thought shuts off. Okay, so our adrenals are really important. But I don't want to, so let's keep this simple. Okay, week 1, you want to rest. Week 2, we've got springtime. The buds are starting to poke through. That's the time to start getting creative. Like if you've got a team, that's a good time to start brainstorming. You're going to reach out to Jamie and you're going to say, hey, I have these ideas. What do you think about this investment?
Yes.
It's the time to really let things start percolating. Okay. Then our summertime, we're at the block party. Right? We've got our bathing suit on. We're going to go for the big run. We're going to lift the heavy weights. It's the time that we're the most turned on. We wear our cute thongs and we put on our lip gloss. Men smell us and they're more attracted to us. We want to have more sex. We're more orgasmic. And that's the time to make the purchase, to publish the book, to be on your TED Talk, to be on stage.
And that's week 3.
That's your summertime. It's really, ideally, it's like at the end of spring and the beginning of summer.
Okay.
Yeah. So then we go into fall. And fall is when things start to quiet down. Okay, that's the week that usually we're in our PMS week. We get more crabby, we get more irritable. We don't necessarily want to be touched. We feel a little bit less social. The viper comes out more easily. We get a little bit bloated, maybe a little bit constipated. So that's the time to go inside a little bit more, not necessarily be in solitude, but really only surround yourself with the close ones, the people, your loved ones, like Thanksgiving dinner. You're going to invite your loved ones over. And so the more that we can utilize that as driven women and go, all right, if I'm going to look at the calendar, if I can control my schedule, if I'm going to host a party, if I'm going to host an open house, can I massage it a little bit so that I'm in my power? And now you're in the place of self-discovery and you're really getting to know yourself, but you're also like foundationally practicing self-care because you're listening into what's happening inside.
That's really neat because we, as ambitious women, we go to lots of conferences and it's all like, rah, 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 you know?
Yeah.
And it's what I found interesting about what you just said is like, everyone talks about learning who you are, but nobody actually knows what that means. Like, at least, you know, it's like really understanding what drives you. And like, you know, when we coach, I really dig down into like, why do you show up? What is your big, I want to jump out of bed to do this. But if you can't, when we talk about that, it's like, you know, even in my coaching, I think this is really important because now even understanding women in real estate, like we go, you know, when I have a group of women and we're talking about investments, I feel like we do, it's like you're gung ho and you go do all of the things. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm worried or I'm nervous or this is how I'm suddenly feeling. And to be able to relate that to what you just described as far as just our bodies and how we work.
Yeah.
That's even, you know,
tell me this. How many times can you think of where you were at a place where you're like, I'm done. I just like, why did I even overcommit myself? I don't want to do this anymore. Or you're like yelling at your husband and you're going, I know this is irrational. And then the next day you start your period.
Right.
And you go, oh,
it's funny how it can happen over and over again. And you still don't like in the moment, you're still like, I feel like I am right.
Right, totally. And then you get to tuck your tail
and this, I am justified.
Right. I'm so glad I didn't fire that employee because it really wasn't the employee. It was just that my emotions and my hormones were different.
Yes.
And so as we prioritize self-care, that means foundationally don't ask people directions to places they haven't been. So are you asking the healthcare providers that actually specialize in hormones and work with women? Okay, so that's me. I got you covered.
Yes.
If you're asking about real estate and trying to diversify your portfolio, sounds like Jamie's got you covered.
Got you covered.
Okay, got you covered. And then we get to go, all right, now I'm asking the right person, but also what does it look like to really prioritize me and be in that place of self-reflection so that as an ambitious woman, I can stop burning the candle at both ends, start as best I can, kind of preparing for what I know is likely going to be happening next week in regard to my emotions and my body. And I can help you curb that so the pendulum doesn't swing so far. And then also communicate that with your husband so that he's prepared And now your sex life comes alive, your relationship comes alive, because there's a more awareness that we as women are really dynamic beings. We're ever changing. And it's a totally different ball game. So for the husbands that are listening, you're much more consistent, kind of like 9 to 5, not a whole lot's going to be changing. Whereas for women, my friends, we are very different in the morning than the afternoon, the evening, week to week. There's big changes.
I had to laugh
Decade.
because yesterday Brad and I got in like a little argument, and that's what I was Sunday, and I'm super productive on Sundays. It's just how I am.
Yeah.
And he wanted to have, we were talking, and this is like personal, whatever, but it's funny because that's what he said. He's like, well, the rest of the world works 9 to 5. So excuse me. I was like, well, I've never done that in 13 years that we've known each other. So
yeah, right. And so
like, that's like, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's just men. And I think are like, have you ever heard like the boxes and the spaghetti talk?
No.
So Brad and I host boot camps, and I think it's a TED Talk or something. And they talk about how women's brains are literally spaghetti. So this zaps this. And so it's like, oh, I have to take the kids to school. Oh my gosh, I forgot that I was supposed to bring this to school and meet with this teacher. And oh my gosh, that teacher's married to so-and-so.
And oh, by the way, there's dust on the mantle.
Yes. And how our brains literally like trigger everything else. And so we're like Sparky over here, and men have the box. So they pull out the family box, and then they put the family box away and they go to work, and then they pull out the work box and they're in work. So when you call the husband and you're like stressed out, during his work day with the kids, his brain isn't there. So when they go into overwhelm, and so it is very interesting. And I think this is such a relevant conversation for our, like literally our listeners and the people that we talk to on a regular basis, because everyone's going through these things, whether they talk about them or not.
Yeah. And people might say, yeah, I don't have the capacity in my week to organize my schedule. Like I just have to go right now. And there are chapters, like there are seasons where we're going to work our tail end off. Our coach was just saying up to your first couple of 6 figures, it's grit. But beyond that, now we get to take a pause and make sure that we're filling up our own cup.
Yes.
And so, yes, what you're saying, I think of it in the terms of diffuse awareness. So as women, we're aware of all things. So that's spaghetti. And each of those things is yelling at us at equal decibel of sound. So I might be thinking, I need to pick up my kids at this time. I need to make that appointment. I need to return that phone call. There's dust on the mantle. There's dishes. There's laundry. I need to call the house cleaner, whatever it may be. And it's all yelling at us. Whereas for a man, think about hunter-gatherer. Our brains haven't changed that much, right? I see the deer, I shoot the deer. I don't need to wonder if maybe there's another deer behind the deer. Right? Whereas for women, go out to the field, that bush is poisonous. This bush I'm going to check behind and underneath. Those berries are going to be ripe next week. I'm aware of my kids' sounds in the background. I know if there's a storm coming. I know that there's predators over there. I'm aware of all the other women in the field. We have diffuse awareness, and that's an evolutionary thing. So our brains are spaghetti.
Brains are spaghetti.
Brains are spaghetti. So we actually have to be reminded that we have a body. And now it's time to drink. And now it's time to eat. And now it's time to prepare to have sex. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not. And I mean, I barely remember to eat. So there's that. And a lot of people, realtors and investors and all of us. That's honestly like that was very like conversations around the family and spending time together and working on our marriage was like when vacation properties came into the picture. Like we know that Colorado is something that we both enjoy, and our kids thrive in the environment. We're kind of left alone in Colorado. Like our kids do their own thing, and it's nice because they're not in our bed watching TV with us. Like we learned how like this feels good to us. Let's make this happen more. And so buying that house in Colorado, well, then all of a sudden it's weird, but like everyone and their mom started calling us and being like, what's with this vacation properties? How do you do that? Are you Airbnb-ing? And like, we bought the property and the goal was not to like Airbnb it. Yes, we did end up doing that because financially we find opportunity in everything. Let's get real. And so we started doing the Airbnb, but it wasn't, Brad and I have openly discussed the Colorado thing. Like, we never want there to be so much wear and tear on the property that it doesn't feel like a home to us anymore. So we don't, like, we're not, like, if somebody calls me and they're like, how much money do you make on that property? Well, honestly, we don't allow people, like, we're not rented every night on purpose. And so, but that's like that, creating that space, like that was, you know, we could make money if we didn't go there this weekend. We could make $1,500-$1,600 in a couple nights. But that we bought this, and we have to remind ourselves that, like, this is our house. This is our place. So when we're not here, other people get to enjoy it.
Yeah. Right.
And that's, you know, as is really busy. And like, that was something it wasn't an easy move for us. It wasn't an easy purchase. We're used to investing money to make money. And that was truly, we're going to put money here just to enjoy it. And we've worked really, really hard to get where we are, to have the money to be able to put down on a property and be able to just enjoy it.
How lovely. And so we get to continue to set aside time for ourselves just to enjoy it, and make a lovely meal for ourselves just to enjoy it, and get personalized supplementation just because we want to enjoy our bodies, and we want to live a long, healthy, vibrant life, and we want to feel confident in our bodies. So we're doing kind of similar work, but just using different platforms.
Absolutely. So Maraya, how do people like get a hold of you moving forward?
Yeah, sure. So I'll give your team the links, and I'm sure you can put them in the show notes. But I would say I also have a podcast, and Jamie's going to be on mine. So it's called the Women's Vibrancy Code. If you are listening to this before June, I am hosting an in-person women's retreat. So if you're curious and leaning in and you really want to embody your feminine power, I'll put the link down below. It's just marayabrown.com/retreat. But
so
the main
way, I was like, I bet she has retreats. We haven't talked about that, but
I do.
Perfect.
Yeah. And the retreat, I've rented an 160-acre retreat center, and literally you land and we've got you food, transportation. I'm flying in speakers. It is going to be a 4-night, 3-day extravaganza where you will be a different woman on the other end. And I can promise.
What are those dates?
You'd fly in June 22nd.
Okay.
And then fly out June 26th, unless you do the VIP day. There's currently, as of today, we're at the end of April. There are 3 spots left for the VIP day. And with that, you get an extra night's lodging, you get a private massage, you get a private one-on-one hour with me, you get a private grocery shopper, and you get a boudoir photo shoot. So now we're going to take this experience of this new powerful version of you.
I feel like you're going to sell out after our listeners hear
that. Yes. Now, the other thing, if the retreat doesn't whet your taste buds, then the best way to lean into the work that I do is I do launches or workshops. And so it's called The Vibrant Life. And so you can just go to marayabrown.com/The Vibrant Life. And I usually do one every 3 months or so. And in there, we're really like, it's really getting your roadmap to move from exhausted to energized, balance your hormones, and feel turned on by your life, your lover, and yourself. And so I go live, it's real time, interactive. You have your own personalized success advisor. And we do a deep dive into your energy, your hormones, your libido, your trauma release, the mindset behind how to up level into your new vibrant, zest-filled, turned on version of you. And that's totally free. And so you're welcome to register. If you do register for that, make sure that you say that you heard from Jamie or the name of the podcast. Make sure there's somewhere in there where it says who referred you, because I like to send little thank yous to Jamie.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Maraya. I would love to continue the conversation too on a future episode. So this was great. We'll see what our listeners have to say and what questions come up, and then we'll totally do a follow-up, because I think it's going to be a big one.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
And yes, reach out to me. I'm very approachable. It's the Facebook DM, Instagram DM. Just reach out.
Yes, she's amazing.
Good stuff. Maybe I'll see you at the retreat, Jamie.
Probably. Me and I'm telling you, I'm pretty sure you're going to sell out after this conversation.
All right. Good.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We hope you'll hit that subscribe button to stay in touch. Also, join our Facebook group at Building Legacy Wealth Through Real Estate to find out more about what we do and what we offer. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.